He is a teacher and he's from Guyana. So I'm just going to give you that about him. He's a teacher, he's from Guyana. And also, he is a student and a teacher at the same time. So I present to you Mr. Nigel Semple.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. Can everybody confirm that they can hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, great. So, established protocol, a pleasant evening to you all. I'm Mr. Nigel Semple. I am a teacher from Guyana. I specialize in the subjects of chemistry, biology, as well as human and social biology. I have been teaching over the past 7 years. I've started my teaching career at a school known as the Novar Secondary School. It's a school where most of the population of students are usually considered as low achievers, or some persons might want to classify them as slow learners. And after spending 5.5 years there, I later moved to the President's College, which is deemed as one of the most prestigious institutions in this country. It is one of the 5 national schools, meaning the top students between the top 5% of the national grade 6 assessments are usually awarded to one of those 5 national schools. And one of the things that make President's College even more unique is that it is a dormitory school whereby we have students from all regions in Guyana who are invited to come and live on campus as residents. So the culture here is pretty much diverse. So for that, Lily. All right, so my job here is to continue the mantle of the theme, which speaks of decolonizing education leadership. And all teachers are leaders. And I hope to do this by sharing some of my experience over the past 7 years teaching in Guyana. So I wish to start this presentation with a little fun fact. Did you know that the traditional model of the educational leadership often mirrors the colonial hierarchies? And this, when reflecting on both the theme and my years of experience, it became more realistic. I've came to realize that as an educator, we are all leaders, which is quite commendable in our own right. And it is our collective responsibility to decolonize leadership. So understand decolonization. Decolonization is defined as a deconstructive or the process of deconstructing colonial ideologies and embracing diverse, inclusive educational practices. So this involves the dismantling systems that perpetuate inequality, creating spaces where diverse voices and perspectives are valued. And it also provides a platform for a more equitable and inclusive educational environment. Relevancy of the colonization in today's world involves things like bearing barriers against historical legacies and persistent inequalities, bearing barriers involves in the challenging and dominant forms of knowledge, and also understanding that it's more of a process and not so much of an event. And with that being said, I would love to embrace the fact or the notion that all teachers are leaders. So every teacher is a leader actively participating in the decolonization of educational leadership. How is this, you might ask? So for teachers in our audience, just consider the time when a student's perspective would have shifted dramatically after a lesson, or sometimes even in the middle of that lesson. Fortunately, as a science teacher, I would have had many of such instances, of which I wish to share about 3. So, perfect example, in one of my biology classes, teaching about the circulation system or the heart. Common practice to have a diagram or to play a video. Hey, why not have an actual heart right there in school? Because what I know is that most of my students, they're interested in going to medical school. Most of them are interested in careers that involves or evolves around science. So I just wish if many of you here were raised with the opportunity to see the reactions of my students when they not only see an art, but were able to dissect and more or less define and identify the various structures of a heart. Science also involves stimulating students' thinking especially critical thinking. And one of my approaches in teaching is always asking students questions. I remember stemming from college, my trainer or my lecturer once posed a question, or a quote actually says that one famous pedagogical mistake is throwing answers like stones at the persons who never ask a question. So I usually ask my students questions just to more or less pique their interest and curiosity. And then from that, you stimulate more student-based discussions while at the same time delivering the curriculum successfully. Then another amazing thing is helping students develop passions for what they really learned and what they love. I wish to share with you this wonderful story of this board that you can see on my screen here. My fifth form students, only a few weeks back, they came to me and they introduced me to this board by the name of Joey, the name that they would have given it. So what happened to Joey is that Joey got injured to the point whereby his wings were inoperable. So my students saw him and they wanted to ensure that Joey received a fair chance of life. So what do? They come to the biology teacher. So instead of giving them a solution, I pitched the idea to them. Okay, Joey is injured. What do you want us to do with it? And all of a sudden, these students started authoring some really interesting solutions. First person, it cannot fly. Something is definitely wrong with his wing. What do you think is wrong with the wing? And they start thinking the different possibilities. Okay, good. So these are all possibilities. How do we guarantee which one is true? They start inspecting, and to more or less shorten the story, they would have developed not only a solution, but they would have ensured that Joey was well fed, he was treated, and on the right, you would have seen an image of Joey after he would have been treated, being re-released into the environment. And that's Joey posing to tell my students their final goodbye. So why am I saying all of this? Is to, one, note that as a teacher, everything that we do in our day-to-day activities involving how we carry ourselves, how we educate, how we deliver the curriculum, and the impacts we have on the lives of our learners are all aspects that contribute to us being leaders. All right, so we as teachers, we have an influence on students. Our role extends far beyond just imparting knowledge. We are responsible for shaping worldviews. We are responsible for molding the next generation of students. We are responsible for encouraging critical thinking. And all of these attributes are just a few of many of what makes us as essential or great leaders. So some strategies that I would have implemented for decolonizing leadership, and they're not my ideas, but they're already out there. It's just some ideas that I would have borrowed. And some of them I would have mentioned before. Inclusive practices. So implement peer-led discussions that allow students from different backgrounds to lead conversations on topics they're passionate about. I did mention President's College. We have students from all of the 10 administrative regions of Guyana. We have students from both the coastland, we have students from the hinterland, we have students from towns, we have students who live in villages, Amerindian communities. All of these communities have different needs. These students have different interests. So instead of just delivering just one approach, have all of these students share the different opinions and the different interests. And all of these are basically ingredients for a perfect lesson or a perfect class discussion. Then we have the approach of authentic learning, leading off of John Dewey's ideology, emphasize genuine, meaningful learning experiences. You give students real life scenarios, have students engage in activities that reflect both the real world as well as give them scenarios that more or less mirrors what they want to do at the end of their 5 years at high school or when they venture into university or what's not. So by implementing authentic teaching, one of the issues that is being addressed is challenging dominant narratives. So it encourages educators to question as well as challenge dominant knowledge, as I just mentioned. I'd also invite students or give students the opportunity to explore alternative viewpoints. And lastly, authentic learning, one of the many difficulties persons might find while implementing authentic teaching is the lack of resources. And I normally say, not because your school lack a certain resource mean that it's not out there. Have the community involved. On the right, I have an image of my class being escorted to one of those industries that manufacture carbonated beverages. We don't have an industrial plant at school, but we have in the country. Why not give those plants a visit? Why not have students experience these things for themselves? And why not give your students the opportunity to learn in an environment that is not traditional, an environment that more or less encompasses what they want to learn? So to wrap up everything I would have just said, I just wish to conclude by saying decolonizing educational leadership, it starts with us as teachers recognizing our influences on students. And with that, I urge everyone to join this transformative journey. I wish to conclude this section of my presentation with a quote that says, if your actions inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Thank you very much.